Logistics Division and Ministry of Commerce and Industry, in 2019 calculated 8.8% of GDP 2017-18, which is not abnormally high compared to the industry, other countries. But one never sees any mention of this report. We keep repeating economic survey, this came after 2017-18 report. Keep repeating 14%, so obviously it's motivated, rather than recognizing what has been done. What really, I think, it's worth your while in this industry to say, look, we are not so inefficient, damn it, and compare actual things with other countries. And you, since you operate in other countries, you should be able to get that data. And don't tell our countrymen that we are inefficient, because we're not. It is true that India has not been, how important are logistics costs for India's competitiveness. It is true that India is not globally competitive manufacturing, and especially labor-intensive products. And the merchandise trade deficit has indeed averaged, merchandise trade deficit in India averaged about 7 to 8% of GDP in the last 10 years or so. But I think that to understand why Indian industry is not competitive, one has to look at other things. Otherwise, if you give this number, then that's why we're not competitive. And then they don't do anything about it. When actually, it's manufacturers who need to look inside and say what they're doing. One other point actually on Indian manufacturing competitiveness being affected by logistics costs. My colleague Shishir Gupta actually pointed this out to me, that how is it, you have to ask the question, how is it that global goods manufacturers can sell in Indian markets using the same Indian logistics infrastructure and remain competitive? We only talk about exports going out and therefore higher cost because of inefficient, costly logistics. But you have to ask the question that after all, the foreign manufacturer whose goods are being sold here come to the port, and then from the port come to us. And so they are then facing the same logistics costs as Indian manufacturers. Vice versa. Indian manufacturers are facing Indian logistics costs, but in the foreign country, wherever they are selling, they have the same logistics cost, supposed to be much cheaper than ours. So it's totally like to like. So if Indian logistics costs cause the uncompetitiveness of Indian industry, then you have to ask, how come they are competitive here? The same logistics, and we are not, which I don't again understand. In fact, since imports come from a different country, overall logistics costs of imports should be higher than domestic producers. I think they produce somewhere, go to the port, from here, then go inside. So from here, he is going inside, only one leg. So I don't understand this. Plus, of course, there's tariffs as well, unfortunately. And so I assume this issue is also common to express delivery services industry. I have learned from the report, of course, that there are some regulations in terms of limits to what you can use for imports, etc., which obviously needs to be addressed. The other point I would make is, in calculating logistics costs, and again seeing how your own industry has fared in this, is that there is no question whatsoever, right? There has been very significant improvement in transportation over the last 20 years, ever since Prime Minister Vajpayee started both the National Highway Development Program and of course the Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana. So, and then further acceleration of this the last 10 years. So it must be the case that things have improved over the last 20 years, 10 years, 5 years. Why does 14% keep the same? I don't understand. Either we've done nothing, there's no highways, right? As you know, airline industry is changed beyond imagination in the last 20 years. There's far more planes flying around. I hear a plane above my house all the time on 24/7 basis. So then of course we made the Gati Shakti program now, the logistics policy. So I do think that it would be very helpful if companies in the express delivery space can provide some estimates on how their costs and efficiency parameters have improved at least over the last decade. Right? Because it could have remained the same if you use the same methodology. And if the methodology is there's no change in costs and so on, then there's something wrong with methodology. So that also then gives us clues on what should be done in the future. Now, of course, logistics also includes, logistic costs also include other elements such as warehousing costs and inefficiencies, procedural time taken for different regulatory clearances, efficiency of terminal facilities, handling at ports and airports, and the like. Now, here also I can say, put as a consumer, whenever I come from abroad or a domestic flight,
he's saying things have actually improved. Things are much more efficient than what some of these numbers have been quoted. So that's a challenge to all the industry people as well as authors of this report to kind of find a way to crack this number. And I was just talking to Mr. Subramaniam, who said many of these numbers haven't been updated for ages. So I think it might be a good time, especially after the e-commerce revolution has started. I think that big changes that you're seeing has happened in very recent years, and that should get reflected. So I think this 14% I think it's a very nice and very compelling argument that Dr. Mohan is making to do that. The only thing when I was like at the same time when I was doing this report a long time ago, the moment you do transport, storage, distribution, that's a much larger part of it. Agriculture is 17% of GDP. Agriculture actually, the studies show that the transport logistics is higher than the production. So a farm gate, if you're getting say grapes from Hyderabad, the farm gate would be 12% of the total value added, whereas the transport logistics would be many-fold more. So there's agriculture, there's industry in there. So there are some reasons to do that, but I think despite all my trying to defend the argument, I think there's a good reason to think about the 14% number and redo that. So we should at some point think about doing this.
Change. The minister may now come at 11:30. So Dr. Mohan, you have some time with us so that I go on into the presentation. The interesting part of this is that the report is more than 72 pages and it has only half a page of logistics. So we have a certain size and we have a certain dream in place. And the dream is more important, that we want to have $1 trillion of goods and services exported by 2030. What do we export to? We export gems and jewelry. We are trying to export electronics. We are trying to move into high-value manufacturing. And who carries them? Express delivery services. So therefore, the efficiency of this sector and wherever there is a hurdle to efficiency of this sector needs to be addressed. Also, this is again a key component of the trade agreement and negotiations, and it's a private sector. FDI is opened up. Why are we not using it to get more in the areas of our interest? That's a question that we want to ask, because still today we are not even sitting on the discussion on this sector. So to think about that, we looked into, in a vision document, what you really look into is that how do we have the growth of the sector under different scenarios, and what are these growth, what determines the growth of a sector? The growth of the sector determines by B2B business growth, B2C business growth. Is government sending a passport through courier a component of the revenue of these companies? Yes, it is. So government to consumer growth. So which segments determine the growth, which factor determines the growth, and growth in this industry is a combination. We can never, neither IMF nor us, nobody can today predict a global growth, so we cannot have a growth prediction. So what we did is we went back and looked at 10 years. And 10 years, how the industry has grown. And the very simple calculation and rule of the thumb was that in the 10 years, the industry almost has grown in India 2.5 times the global growth. India, GDP growth. So India is one of the fastest growing market. The other interesting factor that we noticed is the industry growth is almost share in the world trade. So if our share is 2% in the trade in goods, this is the share of the industry. So if you want to double your share in the goods, if you want to have a bigger market in the world trade from the current scenario to a 1 trillion by 2030, this industry needs to double, because everybody else is also growing. It's not like we are alone growing. So we have to double, and that is where comes digitalization, R&D, mergers and acquisitions, collaborations. And of course, because this is a labor intensive industry, as it grows and invests, employment will be generated.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
People from the industry who should be starting from the fact of why there are so few women in the logistic industry to more important or to more fundamental question that Dr. Mohan mentioned about the cost calculation, some of the issues that Arpita mentioned about the regulatory and other challenges, bureaucratic challenges, red tape. So it will be good to hear the industry perspective as to what they see about it, how the report captures their views, and how we could at least modify, tweak these ideas going forward. Should I start with Subramanian?
I want to respond to the women in logistics comment. Unfortunately, one of the panel members today was to be, our MD of DHL Aviation, the Blue Dot Aviation company, the only cargo airline in the country. So I have to see and she's not here. So my CFO sir is a lady, and my customer service head. So few directors in our company are women. So we have about 25% of our overall staff at women. Some of the functions, more than 50% of the employee base is women. So this is a big area of focus. And in fact, our operation colleagues have broke some new ground in the last year or two by inducting women on the shop floor. People who are sorting parcels, because now the manual labor is significantly reduced. We try to have better automated equipment, material handling, conveyor belts, etc. So therefore, there is now participation of women in frontline. Like you see post-women delivering parcels, we will soon see maybe women couriers also involved in the frontline. So therefore, there is a big move from the industry on that. It brings the right kind of balance. That point is very well taken. I just wanted to give you assurance that at various levels, a lot of work is happening.
I think.
But I should point out, right, that there are now more women graduating from college than men. Okay. So you keep that in mind. The other final thing, you talk about manual labor. I mean, your assumption is that women can't do as much manual labor. Just go to the fields and see what they do.
No, it is not that they can't
There's
do.
also a prejudice. See, I was in a gender sensitization program yesterday at CSCP. So I've become much more conscious of these things. And there are all these prejudices. We can't do manual labor. What do we do? I'm sure Arpita will do more manual labor than I can.
I just want to say that there is a whole host of mindset which has to be changed, and that's changed.
No, seriously. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just.
I think just to say that this is certainly not just logistic industry, so this is a national issue. In fact, everybody, there's a big debate that was happening at one of the economist panel about this whole discussion. In ICRIER, we actually have a whole program of mainstreaming gender in trade and infrastructure. In fact, Dr. Nisha Taneja is here, who is leading this work, where we visited a lot of the border checkposts in India, Bangladesh, and just looking at how many women are working, who are the users, the entrepreneurs, the beneficiaries. So this is a whole host of issues that need to be tackled to kind of mainstream gender into many of these occupations and jobs. So it's a super important issue, and you don't have to be defensive. I think everybody, all of us, has a responsibility to work on this.
Deputy Director in Central Electricity Authority, Ministry of Power. I have two queries actually. We are talking about efficiency in terms of time and cost, but I think considering the importance of logistics, there are also
more questions over here. Can you get the mic? Yes, please. Anybody else?
Dinesh Sharma, I'm in Delhi. I've heard about nothing about China and India. I would like to know what is the efficiency level difference between India and China.
So before I come to that, I will do another round quickly, but let's see if you want to respond to this
May I
question.
respond to the women part of the story? Given that I have been working in the sector for so long and the question on women is coming, let me give the ground reality why women are less. When a woman is employed in a sector, they are employed mostly at the rock bottom level. In this particular sector, while women are now started driving cars and trucks, the bigger issue is that in some states of India, women are not allowed to work at night. When you are doing an e-commerce delivery, you often do late night delivery, early morning delivery, and that the labor laws have to be adjusting to women working at night. There are women safety issues in the ground level. Companies are trying to address that, but there are certain safety issues when you go, we don't see them in the cities, but the moment we are able to provide the wayside facilities with men and women toilets, etc., it's not far off that we can see women driving trucks. It's the same story that why women are not driving trucks. And I think that if we are really serious about the employment of women, we have to create those facilities in our master plan, and hopefully that will be taken up as the master plan. In the report, we look at the innovative environmental changes. We haven't really, this is not a report on environment. When you talk about environment or solar driven vehicles or e-vehicles, that's a separate part of the story which we haven't covered here. What we have covered here is probably if we go for environmental friendly growth, like it's a scenario where we are doing all things right in terms of the structural reforms, but the report does not focus on environmental issues.
Okay, thank you. I thought the fact that your projections from now to 2047 shows a much larger proportion coming from railway and less from surface transport. By default, will make this sector less carbon intensive,
Yes.
but obviously there needs to be more conscious effort, just not what the
Both
government is
within
doing.
every sector, within the air transport, there has to be different kind of technologies. Those details are not there.
So, the last point, that's why again I was emphasizing the DFCs, that we haven't even started work on the 4 other DFCs. That's very important, environmental point of view also. And then on e-vehicles, with e-vehicles you don't have the pollution, etc. in the way that is, but it's dependent on how the electricity is being generated. And that's important from CEA, which is the Electricity Authority. So I think this is kind of interconnected and what reforms are done in the power sector.
Because today we are having Minister to release the report. We have a table 2.1 which gives you exactly where we are. And and I have also given you a bit of a hint that your share of 2% in the world trade reflects your share of 2% of this industry. So you can imagine the size in China.
Problem where we need to dissect and find the root cause so that we can increase our efficiency and take control on the cost as well.
And the last comment is yes, foreign trade policy has increased the limit from 5 to 10 lakhs, and customs has come out with a notification. Thank you.
Basically, on the questions, I am not going to respond to any more women-related questions. Let me come to this question. This is a very important question because see, what you are saying is that you actually gave the answer to the question, that there is a need for a robust risk management system. So the problem is not limiting the exports. The problem is a robust risk management system, and this is where exactly I think the industry and custom needs to collaborate to identify and create a robust risk management system so that the fraudulent practice is addressed. So when you have a problem, you have to address the problem. Limiting courier, how much it can be carried by courier, the same problem can be in logistics. So we have to address the problem across the board in the logistics sector with an IT-enabled and robust risk management system and training of the staff. System are you talking about? ICRIER?
No, in ECCS also there is a risk management system,
Yes,
RMCC.
it is for the custom. It is not linked to the participating other agencies.
No, it is linked, but yes, in ECCS, since it is not electronically linked as in IceGate, we need to move from ECCS to perhaps IceGate in order to improve upon.
Very good, you gave the answer.
I think the last,
Correct. I think 14% is a anchor on which an argument is being made. Yeah. I think the spirit of this report and the discussion should be that whether the percentage is 6% or 8% or 7%, if there is inefficiency which can be removed and an efficiency gain can be done, it will help the trade and it will help the economy. Yeah, so the 14 might become 10, but still are we saying, oh, it was 14, now it has become 10, we can go home and take rest? If you notice that there is 4 more percent, 3 more percent to be knocked off because of digitalization or better infrastructure or removal of dwell times or easier processes, ease of doing business, whole host of things, I think the spirit of the report and the industry and the interaction and policy discussions which is happening is to say that what is the slack, what is the waste I can get out of the system so that everybody benefits. So I think 14% is just an anchor for an argument.
Let me just comment on that, response question back, and then what Mr. just said. The problem we are is methodology or data. The problem we don't know. What is the methodology? We don't know what is the data. And that's where I agree with Mr. Subramanian. The issue is how do we improve? But you can't improve unless you know what you're talking about. And that's my point. That's why I said at least look at what has changed in the last 10 years. You can't tell me that nothing has improved in the last 10 years. So I think that my point is only, he's right, whether it's 14, 10, doesn't matter. The question is, how do you look at it? And it's only then you will find out what you can improve. My final comment, and I won't say anything further, is again as a proof of low cost of criticism here. The Amazon Prime subscription here is a fraction of in the US. Okay? So I get all kinds of free deliveries from Amazon Prime. When I order anything, but the annual subscription is a fraction. Therefore, the courier cost in India must be a fraction of courier cost elsewhere.
Job is pretty easy because Dr. Pita has given a summary of the. Before I get there, just want to talk about in the recent past. We have witnessed the most interesting times in the logistics sector. The transition from traditional to modern, and between 12 and 2012 and 2020, the Indian express delivery industry has grown at a CAGR of 15.8%. And then you have heard what we have seen is with a revenue of about $5.5 billion in 2020 from USD 1.6 billion in 2005. So we have achieved that 15.8% and that's a great way forward. I just wanted to talk about one or two more areas from a summary perspective. One is the need of skilled manpower. I think with the technology as well as the manpower required in the logistics sectors, we can use cutting edge technology in logistics, customs and trade aspects with the help of skilled manpower. So this growth, the Unified Logistics Interface Platform ULIP is designed to enhance efficiency, and I'm just trying to cover some part probably in the report which I found very interesting. This is to reduce the cost of logistics in India by creating a transparent one window platform digitally. And then the structural changes, which is India's efforts in signing the successful comprehensive FTAs, will make cross-border e-commerce more convenient and less expensive. I have one or two points on the regulatory aspects which I have not covered, but Dr. Arpita covered it very passionately, so I won't take that effort. But on the infrastructure related, on sustainability, I just wanted to make a comment, which is if you look at our airports, I mean a lot of the power and they're all neutral, they're green, and we operate through those airports. So Bangalore Airport is an excellent example to demonstrate the state-of-the-art technology and dedicated space for express companies. Something which is going to be a big growth enabler for us, given the size and the scale of business that we have. So to conclude, the express industry members in the ICRIER are aligned with the government's vision of 1 trillion exports by 2010, and we are keen to collaborate, partner and contribute to the government's vision. We are participating in discussions for developing express delivery industry and make India a global cargo hub, which is very critical to cater to the future and expansion. Thank you.
Piyush Goyalji, fellow panelists and guests. It gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this event on express delivery services, supporting the journey towards India at 2047, jointly hosted by ICRIER and Express Industry Council of India. Minister Goel, it's a huge honor and privilege for ICRIER to have you as a keynote speaker for today's event. The last time we had the opportunity to hear from you at an ICRIER event was in October 2021. I don't know if you remember it. We had our annual international G20 conference, and you had just been appointed as the G20 Sherpa at that point. It was an online event, so this is the first time you're actually coming to a physical ICRIER event. And despite the lingering effects of COVID, there were more than 450 participants who were listening in since then. And the last 1 week has been particularly newsworthy for the Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So I should begin by congratulating you and the Ministry for achieving the feat of 760 billion exports. It's a record, and it also coincides with India at 76. Congratulations are also due for a successful announcement of the Foreign Trade Policy 2023. And the final congratulations for the successful completion of the first Trade and Investment Working Group, which is under G20's presidency that was held in Mumbai this weekend, taking MSMEs to global trade. And my observation that I had at the Mumbai event, I actually summarized my LinkedIn post, and I just tell you what I thought about how exciting these G20 events are. I thought global in scale, grandiose in scale, and gourmet in taste. India's G20 events are turning stodgy and obscure meetings into lively and exciting place for economic diplomacy. So this is the third feather in the cap for the ministry in the just 1 week. So not surprisingly, Mr. Minister, we are keenly looking forward with great anticipation to hear your keynote address. In the audience, we have policymakers, senior representatives of the industry, sector experts, colleagues from the media, and several of them are also connected online from all over the world. We started off today's event with a special address on a long-term perspective on India's logistics sector, progress and outlook by Dr. Rakesh Mohan, who is a member of the Economic Advisory Council of the Prime Minister. And Dr. Arpita Mukherjee and her team have prepared a report on how to make India an express delivery hub, attract investment and innovation to the industry, and increase the contribution of the express delivery service sector to the Indian economy. She will present the key highlights of the report, and then we'll have the release of the report and the keynote address by the minister. The report release will be followed by a panel discussion on where eminent policymakers, think tank heads, senior industry representatives will speak. The title of the panel discussion is PM Gati Shakti, Express Delivery Services, Supporting India's Growth Journey. Logistics is a hugely important but highly under-researched area. It is well known that express deliveries at competitive prices are essential for integration into global value chains. Our report discusses policies that can help to improve the efficiency of the sector and enhance India's trade competitiveness. It is worth noting that the industry is not asking for subsidies, and that's what my friends from ICRIER confirmed. Its focus is on global best practices for trade facilitation and ease of doing business. Therefore, there is need for more interaction and collaboration between academics, industry, policymakers, and other stakeholders. And we look forward to receiving feedback on how to take this agenda forward. We hope to continue to work with the government and the industry on this important issue.
Honorable Minister Shri Piyush Goyal, I think a number of times I am able to see you. When we met about less than a month back when the German delegation was there. And very often we seem to meet you in industry outreach consultation program. Just shows the kind of effort you are taking to be supportive and drive and help trade. And I think at the right outset, I would like to thank you for that. And great to have you. The ICRIER team, Dr. Deepak Mishra, Madam Arpita, and the two other writers of the report, my industry colleagues, all brothers and sisters, fantastic to have all of you here today. So on that note, I wanted to make one comment. I just came back from a global conference, our global conference in Germany. There were about 180 countries present. And I must say that in the 2 days of the conference, at least 20 times India was mentioned as the market to be. A place where everybody is investing and we must invest, and the next decade is the place to be in, and therefore outstanding. I think we've created a platform where the world is noticing us. This was visible in 2 reports which my company brings globally. One is called Global Connectedness Index, other is called the Global Trade Atlas. The Trade Atlas projects that India's external trade, or the trade will grow from 3% to 6%, meaning double in the next 5 years, which is fantastic and which is in line with what our anticipation is. And in that context, it's interesting that we're having a report on the express delivery industry. The EDS, or the express delivery services market globally, is nearly expected to be 500 billion by 2030. So therefore, there's significant growth. It's grown at the rate of almost 16% over the last 6 to 7 years in the country. This just underlines the pace of development and the nature of the style of doing business has changed as Indian market evolves and as Indian businesses connect to the global market continuously. One comment I want to make here is the bedrock of Indian business is MSMEs. A lot of people think that express industry possibly is slightly away from MSME. I just want to highlight the fact that 60 to 70% of our customers and the volumes and the revenue we get is from MSMEs. There is an interesting reason for it, which is slightly counterintuitive, which is that MSMEs don't have large workforces, large departments to manage logistics. They look at service providers who will manage end-to-end and provide knowledge support and hand-holding throughout the process of their outreach to global markets, either within the country or to other markets within the country, or the global markets across the places where they export and import from. And express industry exactly does that. So the footprint of express industry in MSME is fantastic. MSME is core to India's growth in the coming years, and therefore this is I should call a jugalbandi which needs to be supported, and that will significantly drive the growth forward. The report by ICRIER and ICRIER comes at a very opportune time. Logistics over the last 4 or 5 years comes to the surface. One of the biggest positive benefits of pandemic, I keep saying, is the importance which logistics has got, and the need for supply chain resilience, and need for more efficient logistics. And therefore, it is further highlighted by 2 big landmark policies and programs which the government has started within the last 12 months. One is PM Gati Shakti, and second is the National Logistics Policy. Both of it squarely puts the spotlight on the logistics space, and in that sense will help policy formation and interest going forward. The other highlight which I want to make is this sector is highly labor intensive. When we last counted pre-pandemic, I think we were close to 20 lakh people were employed directly by express delivery services, and maybe twice that number indirectly benefits from the express delivery service running, and over the last 5 years possibly will significantly grow as well. So this is one sector which will grow and contribute to the economy by providing further and further employment. So therefore, this is a sector which needs that kind of an attention and support, and I'm happy that the report comes at a time where the support is needed for this industry sector. There is a lot which is in the ICRIER report which talks about the importance of EDS, express delivery services. What are the drivers? How is the roadmap for us to move to 2047, the role of express industry in that, and what are the few things which we can do from a policy point of view? I didn't see anything rocket science in terms of what needs to be done. For example, the big broad topics are in terms of infrastructure, broad topics in terms of regulatory simplification, ease of doing business, how do we become more efficient, digitalization, etc. But the mother is in the detail, and the ICRIER team needs to be commended for bringing out the absolute relevant nitty-gritty on the table for some actionable programs which can help us move the next step forward. The focus today is on Amritkal 2047. How do we get there? What can we do to get there? And how a group of people who are represented here largely from the EDS sector.
The Honorable Minister Sri Piyush Goyal ji for coming for this event. We are very, very grateful to the Ministry of Commerce and Industry, both to the DPIIT and to the Department of Commerce to help us to understand this sector. We also would like to thank the custom officers for their valuable inputs into the study report. When we did the study, we found that we were told that this should be a report that can showcase India into a global platform, because it should be able to bring in investment, it should create jobs, and it should lead to joint innovation. That was the objective which was laid down to us, and it was aligned with the objective of reaching Amritkal. When we started the work, we found that India is already on a high growth trajectory. It is doing very well at a time when the world is not doing so well. Logistics is a sector which has witnessed several path-breaking reforms, and the focus that the government has rightly given on integrating SMEs into global value chain is absolutely an excellent focus, because SMEs globally accounts for 80% of the trade, and that's so in India. Now, where does this EDS sector comes in? EDS sector helps in both domestic and international trade. We are talking about a age when we are talking about linking Indian districts and villages to the world. So one district, one product, and that is possible when you carry that product from a district of India into a global platform through a just-in-time integrate fast-track deliveries which the express delivery service providers operate. Majority of this business is B2B, so businesses get connected to businesses. Then comes the B2C business. And in the entire process of this integration, what they do is that they generate employment, improve efficiency, reduce cost, facilitate innovation and R&D. Given this importance, this is now even a key sector of trade negotiations. In the context of India, we are doing very well. We have actually allowed 100% FDI in this sector. Indian market is open and there is immense scope for foreign investment. What we found is that what we had to project was that we had to project the growth of the sector under different growth scenarios, and the growth scenario which is aspirational is when both the B2B and the B2C segment grows, and what we aim to achieve is to enable India to link with the rest of the world. And I am very, very grateful and very, very happy to say that many of the suggestions that we have in this report has already been taken care of in the foreign trade policy. So if we look at what is the express delivery and how does the revenue comes into the picture, this sector grows almost 2.5 times the growth of the Indian economy. So and that has been the trend over the last 10-15 years. So if you see, if India is on a high growth trajectory, this is a growing sector in itself. And the business is now divided almost 23-77% in terms of domestic and international. And from international, this change is not going to be a massive difference in the in 2047, because India is continue to be a very big domestic market, and that's the reason why investors come to India. Today what is happening is that today the 20% of the domestic cargo is going by air. The railway's role is much less, and after the PM Gati Shakti and dedicated fast train and uploading and downloading facilities, if railway takes over, that will be a game changer, and that is going to happen as we see the future. This industry has few large players, a number of large players, few mid-sized other government agencies, like India Post has a speed post, they have a very large network where there is collaboration, cooperation, joint working, then employment will be generated. And employment is today over 3 million, but it is no brainer that it can really double in the near future. The drivers of growth, all the drivers of growth, if you talk about towards the 2047 vision, are actually today set in motion. It is a mix of infrastructure and it is a mix of consumer demand is almost automatic, but skilled manpower, technology and structural changes. And in each of these drivers, you would see that government has come out with path-breaking policies, and in many areas it is important for the industry and the government and other stakeholders to come in and collaborate. So if I look at the scenario, even in the most pessimistic scenario, when the world is going into a recessionary mode, India has a more than 6% growth. So we selected a scenario pessimist even less than that. If you select even less than that scenario, the industry is having a 15% growth. So this is a high growth industry, a driver industry, and if the industry and our SMEs and exporters work together, I think US 1 trillion each of goods and services export by 2030 is a very much achievable target. Now, some areas where we really need to think about is, one is that the express delivery sector for ages was thought about as like a premium car. No, they are not. If they are taking SMEs and onboarding, they have to be treated and they should themselves think to be about efficiency and not a premium segment. And for that, they have to be operating like the logistic providers, and they need everything at par and level playing field like the logistic providers. So, if I am a SME exporter, I should have the right to select which service mode I should be taking. Secondly, there is a very good initiative in the foreign trade policy. It talks about something that India probably is some of the only country it has among the competing countries that we are competing with, like Vietnam and others, Thailand and others in the markets like European Union, is the value limit. We have a value limit on exports through EDS. It is very interesting that the foreign trade policy already talks about it. It has enhanced the value limit, and it talks about this may be reviewed and removed because if you are talking about SMEs which are in the handicraft sector, gems and jewelry sector, INR 10 lakhs is very small amount for the products that they carry, even samples. There is one problem. Initially, there was a restriction on import of commodity perishable through the express mode. There was a reason for that because the airport did not have the cold chain infrastructure. Now the cold chain infrastructure has been built into the airport. So now if the IT system, which is developed jointly by the express companies and the customs, can be linked to the IT system for a better risk management, and then the perishables can come in, it will be very good. The foreign trade policy already mentions about the allowing drugs and medicines and pharmaceutical. You know, Vietnam is taking over our market for review of dental implants. Like, these are the kind of products that we can bring into this country, do the R&D here, send it back, bring in blood samples, do the research here, send it back if imports are allowed, and that needs to be looked into. But for that, there are three things have to be done. One is that the IT connections which need to be there, as mentioned in the foreign trade policy e-commerce chapter, that intergovernmental IT connectivity has to be there. Then we have to have enough officers in the drug controller and others to sit and clear the cargo. There has to be a system of pre-shipment filing process, and there can be joint capacity building so that enough skilled manpowers are put in the port of entries, because these cargoes come through the air mostly, and some places where India shares land borders with the neighboring countries.
Mr. Dr. Deepak Mishra, Director of the ICRIER, Mr. R.S. Subramaniam, Vice Chairman of EICI, the authors of the report. I just had a chance to glance at it. Seems very, very interesting. A lot of food for thought for all of us. particularly policymakers. Thank you, Dr. Pita Mukherjee, Dr. Atul Sanganeria, and Ms. Ramneet Goswami for your work. Mr. Chandar Agarwal, and all the distinguished participants of this express delivery services engagement with ICRIER to come up with a roadmap until 2047. I was seeing the program and I realized that what Prime Minister Modi has very often been talking to us about logistics becoming the centerpiece of our attention, more particularly recognizing that this will be an important element which will determine our journey to become a developed nation. It will become more and more crucial when we are looking at international trade in a big way. Is possible looking at the enthusiasm of the industry. We can make a difference to India's overall logistics ecosystem. And I think if we work together in the spirit of partnership, we can actually implement several of the recommendations which I could on a very cursory glance see are day-to-day problems that probably I also faced when I was running industry or importing or exporting goods. In fact, half my work in the government has been very much influenced with my own personal experiences dealing with the government from the other side. And therefore, normally, I would not have expected ICRIER to play that bridge between the government and the industry as well as I can see in this report, and I'd like to compliment you, Deepak, Arpitaji, and your entire team for engaging with industry and with government and trying to bridge the gap and come up with these recommendations. Thank you for that effort, and what I would suggest is that we do a deadline-based, a time-bound arrangement where the team from the Ministry of Industry, which looks at the logistics division, where we have a very senior official, Sumita Daura, she's Special Secretary rank. Ahirwar is probably joining you in the afternoon session. So I'll have Ahirwar lead this initiative. Surinder Ahirwar can lead this initiative. Maybe Arpitaji from your side, along with your colleagues. Maybe industry, different segments of industry may like to dedicate one person. So courier industry could be one, from the shipping side it could be another, whatever. And the days of COVID have taught us that hybrid working can really work. So I would recommend don't make people fly up and down from wherever they are. So we can get a flavor of people from all over the country, different regions. Somebody from the east, somebody from south and west. So that it's not just Delhi centric. And put together this team and in 30 days, convert this document that you have just now presented to us, Arpitaji, into a roadmap of delivering what you have recommended. So can I hope to receive your support on that? And 30 days means you'll probably have to burn the midnight oil or work on weekends also, because each one of you have your own duties or your own work also. But I look at it this way. You articulated about the growth in our exports. In fact, just to do a little more deeper dive into this growth, we had a period of almost 10 years when India's export of goods and services were range bound between $475 billion and $530 billion. Highest we achieved was, I think, 536 or thereabouts, 36 or 38. In the year 1890. Then 1920 we had lost the February-March period due to COVID, so it dipped a little bit. 2021 was a further dip. 2021 was about $500 billion. Just so that we all understand what the story has been about. And that 500 was probably 206 billion of services and 294 billion of goods. That was the 500 billion we had. Of course, it was a COVID year, challenges many, and we had fallen from about 513 or thereabouts to 500 that year. Now look at the growth trajectory in 2 years. Of course, the post-COVID recovery gave us additional demand despite big challenges on the freight, pricing, costing, and difficulties of shipping. We were able to grow our goods from 294 to 422. It's a massive jump. Services grew from 206 to 254. And collectively in 1 year, we grew from 500 to 676. And there was a lot of stress in the system. Most people felt that this is too rapid a growth and will be difficult to even sustain, forget growth. And that had been the historical truth, where we had always had a peak and then gone back a little bit. But one thing the Honorable Prime Minister keeps encouraging all of us to do is A, think out of the box, B, set bold, ambitious targets. What is that? Hairy, audacious goals or something? What is that? Famous, big, bold, hairy, audacious goals. And C, don't live in the hesitations of history. Go beyond the past. Very often we have been held back because we always look at things from the perspective of this is how it has happened over the years. हमारे यहाँ तो ऐसे ही चलता है. And that's the changing mindset which at least we are making a conscious effort to bring into government. I would hope that we'll see that impact on think tanks like ICRIER going forward. Think contemporary, think beyond the past, beyond the historical understanding, and be bold in our outlook. I mean, it's a complete misnomer to expect that there are limitations to each one of our stakeholders' capacity to perform. As they always say, it's the ordinary people who give extraordinary results. And I'm happy to share, as was rightly pointed out, that while we had, in my mind, thought that we'll keep a 750 billion target since we are celebrating Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, 75 years of our glorious independence. At first count, everybody was hesitant. Gradually, as the numbers built up, they started saying we'll get close to 750. And I remember, even as recently as probably 28th of February or 1st of March, I had one more engagement with the industry, both services and goods, to pump them and encourage them that, look, there's no going back, we have to achieve this target. And I must say, the response from Indian industry was truly very satisfying, very encouraging. They committed to me that we won't let you down. And I think the final number is going to be closer to $765 billion. I'm not venturing to make any announcement or anything, but usually the services final number comes with a little time lag. So we'll get the number only about a month or so for March. And I won't be surprised, truly I won't be surprised, if we actually go up to the number that I had originally thought of when I drew the $1 trillion roadmap of goods and $1 trillion roadmap of services by 2030, to which one of you also alluded to. The 2 trillion roadmap to 2030. When I prepared that map, the number for the year gone by was 772. I'm still keeping my fingers crossed to see the services number in the country. And we had a lot of back office operation. We had a lot of R&D happening in India. We had a lot of engagement in the services side, in supply chain. So banks, Fortune 500 companies had an element of their entire supply chain on services, which had India as a hook within that supply chain. Thanks to the massive effort which happened right from 2015, when COVID hit us, we were able to quickly rejig our delivery systems from offices, from special economic zones, to literally moving everything to the homes. I remember I was handling railways at that time. We used to give broadband connectivity to people's homes by the thousands every day, so that we did not miss out or we did not let down a single customer anywhere in the world, even for a single minute. We ensured seamless delivery of services. And I remember when we had the G20 Leaders Summit in Rome, the night before the Leaders Summit, when we were discussing with the Honorable Prime Minister, he coined this phrase, India can be the trusted partner of the world. And I remember when he said it the next day at the Leaders Summit, everybody in the room, all the leaders who spoke after him, picked up on that point, that we look upon India as a trusted partner. And we don't very often, not you means any of us, we don't realize the significance of these important interventions or learnings in services. Through this huge digital network that has been created in India over the last 8 years, the time has come, friends, that we do the same. We duplicate that kind of a story in the logistics sector for goods. And that's where I think each one of us is an equal stakeholder. Government stands shoulder to shoulder with you. End of the day, it's all going to be about trust. It's going to be about transparency. It's going to be about our talent. And all of this will help us in our trade. And friends, you mentioned about EDS not being a premium segment. I think we should market it as a premium segment. But ultimately, the cost should not be a premium cost. The time and days have changed now. When you're looking at just-in-time delivery, though in COVID people started re-looking at that, I think it happens in a short term, everybody's a little scared. But as we cross the hump, people are going to get back to GIT. GIT is a lot about express delivery of services also, because there's a back end. At every element, the steel mill will get coal and coking coal and iron ore. GIT. They would like to produce steel and give it to the component manufacturer, GIT. And then the entire chain right up to the car being made and shipped out, up to the customer. Manage the entire paperwork around the logistics sector. When we in government are looking at how we can build out large amount of infrastructure, and friends, 10 lakh crore investment in infrastructure only by the government. If you add the effective investments through the state support that we give to each of the states, it comes to about 13 lakh crore. In 1 year, there was a time until not too far in the past, where in a decade the government would not spend 13 lakh. It is planned to be spent in 12 months. And this is going up year by year. If you look at the last 3 or 4 budgets, it's almost quadrupled in 4 years. Railways budget, you spoke extensively about railways, because the 2 dedicated freight corridors will soon come up and have a significant impact. During COVID, we were able to, on the one hand, reduce or rather eliminate human loss due to accident, but we were also able to double the speed of freight trains. And I think it continues to be far more efficient than it was maybe a decade or 2 decades ago. With the DFC coming in, it will get even more efficient. There are other DFCs which are on the anvil, which are being run through PM Gati Shakti to see its viability, which we hope we can implement in a public-private partnership. So the effort is in the right direction. But certainly when we work together, the efforts will become more fruitful, more outcome-oriented, will link us with the rest of the world much smarter, much faster, more cost-efficient. And I can assure you, the Prime Minister's vision for India is truly big and bold. I remember in one of his engagements, where he spoke about all of us witnessing a new history being created. We are lucky to be a part of this generation, to witness the transformation of India. And the entire world, friends, the entire world is looking up to India with hope, with anxiety, and with confidence that we can deliver. So we have truly a huge responsibility on our collective shoulders. But I know our shoulders are very, very strong. I know that India has the capacity to deliver. Responded to the needs of less developed countries, the Pacific nations, the Caribbean island nations, the African nations who needed vaccines. I'm told nearly 28 crores were exported at affordable prices, or in most cases free of charge. Look at Turkey when they had the huge humanitarian crisis, the earthquake, series of earthquakes. India, and they are not our best of friends, I think we all know that. India was one of the first countries, Prime Minister Modi was right on it, that sent the NDRF teams there to help. In a humanitarian crisis, you don't look at other geopolitical issues. When Afghanistan needed wheat or food, we were the country to provide it, despite all the difficulties in our relationship in the last year and a half. When we go into our speed of delivery of various public programs, UPI, huge example of express delivery of services on the financial services side. Because after all, by democratizing UPI and the payment systems, not only have we saved the country from large amount of transaction costs, we made it so affordable today that probably moving money has become at a zero or minuscule cost. But we've helped so many people, entrepreneurs, startups, banks, get an opportunity to play a part. Money moves multiple times. 8 billion transactions in 1 month. It's probably financial transaction. It's only possible because of UPI. Who had ever imagined that India will have a system where 80 crore poor people will not need to carry their ration card in their pocket. This is their ration card. Their Aadhaar number is their identification. Nearly 98-99% of India has an Aadhaar number. Suspect all of us in this room will have an Aadhaar number. You just need to know your Aadhaar number and your thumb impression. We begged, borrowed, didn't do the third part. Bought, I can say begged, borrowed and bought. From all over the world, airlifted ISO containers and tankers so that we could distribute. But most of the liquid medical oxygen would come either from West Bengal, Odisha, Jharkhand, that region in eastern India, or somewhat in Jamnagar, and few plants in Maharashtra. It would take nearly 14-15 days to move them from there to Chennai, to Kerala, to Bangalore, to all the southern states, and 17-18 days to bring them up to Himachal, Punjab, Delhi, two-way. Trucks used to go up and down, fill up, come, unload. It's another matter that the Delhi government only created roadblocks and really messed up the entire distribution ecosystem. And actually, I don't know how much loss of, it is a terrible, very painful experience we had dealing with Delhi at that time. But innovative ideas would come up. He one day called up early morning and said, okay, if you can't use the Air Force planes, you can use the railways. We had to, the container would be emptied here, or the truck would be ISO container, or the tanker would be emptied in the place, would go to the nearest Air Force base or airport, load it to the plane, go to the place where it was to be loaded. By that time, trains were kept parked. We had sufficient trains. COVID time, the trains were not running at full capacity. It would immediately load, come to the train, and loaded containers would move by train. So 16 days or 14 days or 18 days on the empty journey came down to a few hours, and on the tank filled up came down to less than 2 days. And can you imagine how many thousands, maybe lakhs of lives we were able to save with this faster turnaround? Because there was no way we were able to reduce that 16 days otherwise. There was a shortage or a limitation to the amount of tankers and containers we had. We had converted all nitrogen, all argon tankers, all industrial oxygen tankers also to medical oxygen. All that purging was done, certification was done. Despite that, the sheer volume moving from 700 per day to 9,000 per day, moving through 3,000 kilometers, 2,500 kilometers both ways, was such a humongous task. But through the elementary ideas that Prime Minister Modi would come up with, and this would usually come up early morning. तो आप दिन भर काम में लगा दें. I'm just sharing this with you because that's what this government would like to see in the logistics space also. This is all about logistics, but see it in your business logistics space also. I think it's going to be about speed, about efficiency, about transparency, and ultimately earning the trust of the nation, of the world, of all the stakeholders. Speed will determine the success story of India. This is going to be India's century, as many eminent people have been saying. The delta from a $3.5 trillion economy to a 30, 35, 40 or even $47 trillion economy is so huge that we need 10 times the number of people who are in this room to be really coming up with newer ideas, newer ways of doing work. And if we work together, using the PM Gati Shakti, the ULIP, the fact that we have a digital and very highly sophisticated technology strength in the country, the fact that we are fast moving towards sustainability with green energy, already electric vehicles are expanding rapidly, we'll have hydrogen vehicles coming into the system, ethanol is already 10% blended, will become 20% in the next 3 years. Report supporting the journey towards India at 2047 will help us get the initial ideas, the initial kickstart, so that going forward, logistics should not be a deterrent to our growth, expansion, both domestically and in international trade. Thank you once again, ICRIER, for giving me an opportunity. Today is an auspicious day, it's Mahavir Jayanti. I'm half a Jain. My mother used to be a Jain before she got married into our family. So, I'm very, very happy Mahavir Jayanti to all of you. And I do hope the simplicity and the high values that Lord Mahavir has always taught and which has continued to inspire me over the years will continue to inspire each one of you in your lives.
To work with the industry and with the ministry and others to produce this thing before May 4th. So thank you very much. But now let me hand over to Mr. Chandra Agarwal, for Managing Director TCI Express, for the vote.
Thank you very much, Mr. Deepak. Thank you, Abdullah and Minister Piyush Goyalji. It's actually quite heartening to hear that 2047 GDP target has been set to, let's hope, 47 trillion. But that also means that the logistics growth at that level of GDP would be about 5 trillion. So that also holds a very big opportunity for the logistics industry. So I'm grateful for that if that happens. Period of Amrit Kal. I have been in the logistics industry for almost, you will not believe, 23 years. And I have seen, and my family business, TCI Group, has been in the business for about 70 years. So we have seen, we have transported, like goods on bullock carts to, at the moment on the high-speed trucks, EV trucks, and even rail. So I have seen that transition happen as to, when I joined the logistics industry in 2000, how by 2016, when the GST came in, the entire new opportunity of logistics opened up. Who would imagine that logistics industry would be of such a high scale of high value in India? I mean, if you look at the numbers now, even at 15% GDP of the 3 trillion economy, that's about $450 billion. So it's a huge opportunity. And this was not possible, before in the days of, pre-GST. So I think India, because of that, has now become one of the fastest growing market in the world